Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It's the 25th. It's April. It's the year 2026. And I haven't uploaded in 10 days on this channel because when I uploaded that video saying they're trying to kill you, YouTube took my video down and I wasn't allowed to upload for 10 days. So that's the reason that you should subscribe to my other channels, because last night I did an hour-long live stream on RFB3. And most of you probably didn't know that because most of you weren't there. But you should still watch it because there's incredibly relevant, crazy information that's in that. But this particular video, I was going to do an entirely different video on the IDF, but seeing how that's what got my last video taken down, I figured I'd start out with this. So I'm going to prove to you that hell, demons, angels are very, very, very real, and we actually have the ability to see them. I've spoken about this before, but a YouTuber called Control-Alt-Delete put out a video this morning that completely reminded me. So I'm going to leave a link to his channel below. But let me show you some of the times that we've accidentally discovered or seen demons flying through the sky in Vietnam. We've heard the screams of hell while drilling 4 miles below the earth. You know what I'm saying? This is all incredibly real. Or the scientist that invented a telescope that works more differently than any telescope you've ever had an opportunity to use. And with this telescope, he's able to see beings of darkness and beings of light. Now, what do you think those are? It's called the Santilli telescope. And if you've followed me for any length of time, you're more than aware of it. So here we go. To start this out, we're going to go back 10 years when I first posted this video. I apologize for the road noise, but it is what it is.
Breaking news. New telescope observes otherwise invisible terrestrial entities with intelligent movement. A new report published in the latest edition of the American Journal of Modern Physics has revealed a startling finding. A newly developed telescope with concave lenses has observed, for the first time, entities in our terrestrial environment that are invisible to our eyes and to conventional Galileo telescopes with convex lenses.
How do we get people to understand that there is not only a God, but God watches each and every one of us? Do you see what I'm saying? Not only is there a God, but there are other dimensional entities. We're not as good as it gets. Sad to say. But they don't tell you that because that would completely throw their theory of evolution out the window. There used to be bigger, smarter, stronger entities on this earth, and they're still here. But they're in another dimension, meaning we can't see them, but they can still see us, and they can still interact with us. That little voice in the back of your head, if you're not grounded in the word of Jesus Christ and God, well, that little voice in the back of your head is going to be one of these other entities. There is evidence of it all over the earth. There always has been. So I don't understand how flat earthers understand that the earth is immovable, it's not moving, it's totally flat, that those things out there that NASA tells us are distant suns aren't suns whatsoever at all. They're other world beings, angels, demons. As a matter of fact, these guys invented this groundbreaking telescope, and what's the first thing they saw when they used this telescope? We saw entities. Some were dark, some were light. Does that sound familiar? Entities of dark, entities of light, angels, demons.
Since the dawn of our civilization, all the way to the time of this breaking news, we humans believed that everything that exists up there is only what we can see with our eyes and with our optical instruments. Well, things have changed now because we have established the existence of entities existing in our terrestrial environment. And these entities are completely invisible to our eyes as well as to our optical instruments, but are fully visible with new instruments, therefore dramatically enlarging our conception of the perceivable universe with far-reaching possibility of future development and discoveries that perhaps are beyond our imagination at this time.
Evolutionary Santilli telescope is designed to detect antimatter in deep space. By antimatter, we mean an entity with characteristics that are the exact opposite of ordinary matter, including the index of refraction of light, which is opposite. As you can see in the diagram, we have two telescopes, the Santilli and the Galileo. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that the only real difference between the two is the lens. Notice that the Galileo uses a convex lens, whereas the Santilli telescope uses a concave lens. Now, when ordinary light passes through the Galileo telescope with the convex lens, that lens focuses the light and can be recorded, or the image recorded, by a digital camera. Should antimatter light pass through the convex lens, it would merely be dispersed along the walls of the telescope and not be focused at all. Now, the exact opposite happens with the Santilli telescope. When antimatter light passes through the concave lens, it is then focused and provides an image that can be recorded by a digital camera. Ordinary light would be dispersed among the walls of the telescope.
We detected at least two types of ITE. The first type, also called dark ITE, essentially consists of entities leaving a dark image in the background of digital cameras attached to our new telescope. And the second type, called bright ITE, essentially consists of entities leaving this time a bright image in the background of digital camera attached to our telescope, often visible without any enlargement.
The dark entities of light, angels, demons, etc. Do you see what I'm saying?
Now, sadly, the Santilli telescope in Thunder Energies appears to be out of the website's down. I can't find anything past 10 years ago, so they buried this. The Santilli telescope is basically the Lucifer telescope, the one that's owned by the Vatican. And if you want to watch that video that I did back in 2017, it's an hour and something long. I'll leave links below to a channel called Alt Censored, where most of my videos, most of them have been stored. They're still there. I did a very long video on the Lucifer telescope, incredibly in-depth, and explained it all. And I had a couple of experts on with me that explained it all. And even back then I was talking about 2030. And it's kind of funny because we're looking right down the barrel of that right now. But first, let's get on to more proof that angels and demons are all around us all the time. We're just unable to see them. The human eye can only detect a minuscule amount. Do you see what I mean? 0.0035% of reality. So if you can see less than 1% of reality, what's really going on? You know what I'm saying? But all these wealthy people, they've got it all dialed in. They've got their Lucifer telescopes. They've got all sorts of wacky things going on, including large hadron colliders that are keeping portals open, steady, good to go, so things can come in and out at all times. But listen to this. This is going to be a reminder for you. This happened during the Vietnam War. So a lot of you guys, I've met you. I know that you've got nods, PVS 14s, night vision, all sorts of things like this. But night vision, when they first came out with it, was during the Vietnam War. I've spoken about this before. And, well, you know what? I'll let them explain it. Listen to this.
So my father did 3 tours in the Vietnam War. And in his second tour, he was advanced enough in rank, and he was there, I think, 11 or 12 months. And when he was in country at that point, he's always been a field officer, and came up in the military through the Korean War and a battlefield commission. And so, the military likes guys like him, and they let him be in charge of a couple of different projects. One of the projects that he was in charge of at the time was this technology that they introduced into Vietnam that almost brought the war to a standstill. Wow. And this technology was a night vision goggle. But it's not night vision as we have it now, okay? Because the night vision goggle was done in the red spectrum. And so when my father came back from Vietnam...
You mean infrared or...
No. I'll explain.
Ordinary red.
Oh, ordinary red. Okay. So instead of seeing... When you look at a night vision goggles now, you see green. Everything is translated into green for you. And human eye sees green, more colors, shades of green than any other color. It's part of our evolution, our need to find food.
So that's clever then.
Correct. But see, here's the thing. It started off as red. And so the night vision goggles were introduced to helicopter pilots and gunnery people in Vietnam. And I won't hesitate I won't guess as to which year it was that they introduced them. But my father was part of this initial experiment with the troops that he commanded. And it was a disaster because the image was presented in red pixels, not green. And because of the technology being used at that time, it created very interesting effects that they could not deal with. But the effect was this. A gunner in a helicopter would have no problem using these goggles. And only everything is showing up as a sort of a faint reddish image. And it was true night vision the way we have it now. And even a greater depth, because you could also flip it and get an extra layer that was sort of yellowish that would be heat signatures as well. And they don't have those combined anymore in these goggles. Anyway, the goggles that were presented to the gunners, and my father tells the story of the very first time they're out with them, and they're flying along, and he's in the front of the helicopter with the pilot. And all of a sudden, in a very peaceful area, not anything going on at all, the gunner in his on the starboard side of his helicopter starts firing wildly at their height, not at anything on the ground, but at an area that he was shooting at, and basically causing other helicopters in their little flotilla to have to react. And my father goes on back to the gunner, basically demanding, "What the hell, dude? What are you shooting at?" And the kid is just sweating profusely, and his eyes are just dilated beyond belief. And my dad thought he was dealing with another heroin addict, but this was before it had gotten really bad in Vietnam, and the kid was not exhibiting those kind of symptoms. He was reacting to what he had seen. And he's describing to my father that he was shooting at these basically flying demons that were flying alongside the helicopter. And he knew they were coming to get him because they were gesturing at him and they could see him. And so he reacted and he started shooting his Bren gun, big 50 caliber slugs at these things, right? And they were flying along right next to the helicopter. So he's firing out directly from the helicopter, and there are other helicopters in the vicinity. So it caused all kinds of problems. And this goes on repeatedly, week after week after week. Every time they try and use these night vision goggles, at some point they encounter monsters, true monsters. Now, officers had been told not to wear these. Okay, the pilots were told not to wear them. But my dad put them on to see what the hell was going on, and to hear him describe it, it was like being in the worst kind of a demonic gothic hell. Jeez. That you'd look out at the tops of trees and you'd see these creatures with big wings and claws and everything come flying off of the tops of the trees. But you take the goggles off and there's not even a disturbance in the fog above the canopy of the trees, right?
They're perceiving into an aspect of consciousness.
Correct.
Another dimension.
And it was tied to the red image. As soon as they went to green, all of this kind of stuff disappeared.
Of course.
So very interesting interview there. Obviously, this is like a word of mouth thing, so it's difficult to 100% prove or verify this. But there are some things out there that kind of tie into what he's saying. There was this post on a military forum that talks about what may have been these goggles that Cliff High's referring to. And the person posting talked about how hard it was to find information on them and parts for them. He says, "It is near impossible to find any information about these Su-49 night vision goggles. They were made by ITT Aerospace Optical Division, and they are dated 1969. They came in a 1969 dated padded hard plastic case. They're what is known as Gen 1 night vision and needed an external light source. SOG were reported to have used these early NVGs along with the later SU-50 model, both with the ANPOS-8 aiming light that was mounted to a rifle. They were also used by the 46th Special Forces Company in Thailand and the Santilli prison raiders. We would greatly appreciate any information on these, and anyone who has an SU-50 or an ANPAS-8 aiming light for sale, please contact us. And there's also this article that was written by Richard Ruth at the U.S. Navy Department of History, and it was about night vision goggles in Vietnam. And he describes how soldiers struggled to adjust to using them since they were such a new technology, and he talks of how they saw things with the glasses that actually weren't there. He said soldiers reported seeing dragons and other supernatural creatures when they used the night vision goggles, and there was one medic who saw a pile of dead bodies when he had the glasses on, but the bodies weren't actually there. And this historian claims that they saw these things because of stress and fatigue and exhaustion, which could be the case, but these reports also line up with that earlier video.
So, of course, the military's like, oh, it was soldier fatigue and all these other things. Okay, if it was soldier fatigue, why were those Generation 1 night vision? Because that was the first time we were using night vision. Why was it changed from the red spectrum to the green spectrum that we see now if it was simply fatigue? Just put it on a guy who's not in Vietnam. Test it with somebody, in a different type of a war environment, someone that's fresh, someone that just got off leave, and have them test it. Because they're lying. They're lying. There's other entities around us, which is why these guys are always looking at the sky. They're not looking into outer space. Outer space. They're looking into the firmament. They're looking into the lower heavens or something to that effect. Shut up. Hey, let's set up your windows. Shut up. At any rate, let me remind you of one thing. The cola mining incident, okay? These guys drilled down 4 miles. If memory serves, 4 miles. And this is what they heard. Remember this? I'm sorry. They drilled down 8.9 miles. 8.9 miles straight down. And that's what they heard. Now, that just went away. They covered that up. The recording still exists because, the internet. But think about this stuff. Seriously, truly, honestly, think about this stuff. We've had so many crazy phenomenons on Earth right now, and people are just like, oh, that's lightning. Oh, that's a sundog. This showed up on the weirdest weather events. The kid that does Your Daily Dose of Internet, he did a video, and this is what he showed and thought this was a sundog. This is clearly a sustained portal. That's what CERN does. It sustains portals. There's places on Earth where portals have been recorded since people were allegedly painting their faces and carving things on rocks. And every single one of those places right now has a military base or a Vatican site on top of it right now. Why do you think that is? Seriously.
Sundog, but it's a very rare type of sundog because it is so low to the ground. The light reflecting off falling snow made what looks like a portal to another dimension.
Let me give you a little tip there. You see that? That's not a sundog. A sundog is an atmospheric event. This is sitting on the ground. Somebody is literally skiing right up to it. And as you can see, there's one directly above it because as above, so below. So I guess I said all that to say this. Heaven, hell, God, Satan, angels, demons are incredibly 100% real. According to scientific studies, we can only perceive 0.0035% of what's going on around us at all times, which is why your dog or your cat can see something that you perceive as a ghost, but they seem to see it. You see what I'm saying? These guys have technology, and they have kept technology from us that allows us to understand that the firmament, the space above us, is God's footstool. And everything that we do, every word that we say will be accounted for. So I'm taking this Sabbath to literally make this video to let you know that heaven and hell are very real. And if you're not born again in Christ's name, do so immediately. You can probably find somebody in the comment section below to help you do that. Do you see what I'm saying? Pray unceasingly. We're barreling towards Agenda 2030, where they're going to cut everything off. Everything you do will be based on your carbon footprint. Meanwhile, the same people that are going to impose this on you are literally building data centers all over the face of the earth that are actually the antithesis of what CO2 endangering the atmosphere is. So they're saying this, but they're doing this. But you just shut up and do what they say. And it's coming very soon. For those of you that aren't going to go along with their system, like myself, you're going to meet an early demise. And that's God's plan for you. I have to believe that. With all of my heart and soul, I must believe that. So pray unceasingly. Seriously. It's not about preparations. It's not about weapons. It's not about gold. It's not about anything other than you finding that little voice that you had when you were a child again, because that little voice was God telling you what was right and what was wrong. And this electronic God and the frequencies all around us that have been trying to crush that little voice in your head, you need to find a link back to it, because heaven, hell, Satan, God, demons, and angels are incredibly real. And I don't want you to find out before it's too late. At any rate, Richie from Boston. I have a mouse right here. I have to click on a pause button after I'm done quacking at this. That's why I keep looking up. And I'm out. Links to the live stream I did last night. Links to Control Alt History. And any other links I can think of will be pinned in the comments below. I'm out.